Thanks.
Livre.
Messier. Livre. Liwe, livre.
Paks.
Mustan kissan paksut posket.
Matjeje. Ja. Si. Vysoký. Matjeje. Proč? Níte. Počkej. A. Si.
Track 6.
Aspri petraxes aspri apton ilioxex asproteri. Aspri petraxes aspri apton ilioxex asproteri.
En coginio panas.
Oh boy.
Ad ferad verda ferra ferda vetri.
Jacob. Hefed. 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 Hek. Hek. Hek.
Саша по шоссе.
А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку. А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку.
Mwalimu.
Juma ni mwalimu mke. Trak.
Ирак чимав чипах чемп чавю чи ченчи чини. Чирак чимав чипа да чирак чимав чипцах чемп чавю чи ченчи чини. Акакит альшит. Хикрин. Акакит альши хикрин. Akakit alshi krikrips. Oh, thanks to cat sons. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Söper. Pupu.
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages. And this is a stream where first I gotta get my Windows set up properly. But as I do that, this is going to be the stream where we talk languages and language learning and answer your language learning questions. So, and I also want to tell you an update about the crowdfunded translation project that I'm currently working on. I'm currently on $145 out of $1,200 for a long-form article by Manuel Gavieses Donoso from 1969 called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet. If you want to read the completed translations in the project, you can find them on this link here. And if you want to support the project with a donation, you can do so here. Meanwhile, I've got something that I'm thinking of adding on to the crowdfunded translation project. This would be something for my paying Patreon subscribers. Anyone pledging, let's say, $5 and up. Audio recordings, essentially an audio book of the translations of the Punto Final articles. It would be, I would be recording that and making that available to paying Patreon subscribers. I haven't quite decided whether to do that at $1 or $5 tier, but that is something that I am considering setting up in the very near future. And so that's something to look for, and you can, when that happens, you will see it on my Patreon page, the link I just dropped in chat. How's everybody doing, chat? As I just get the rest of my windows and widgets as I need them, so that we can, yeah, there we go. Yes, I accidentally started this stream on the other channel. I'd forgotten that I had to actually switch over before starting it, so it might take a moment for people to notice the new link. But as we do, I thought I might start out with, decided to just do a search for fast language learning and just see what sort of things one finds on YouTube that will supposedly help you learn languages fast, and see how many of them are actually valid. So let's start with learn any language fast for the rest of your life. This is a very short video for somebody who is apparently promising quite a lot. So let's find out what's...
Why do we suck at learning a new language? We all did it when we were baby.
Okay, already. Jesus, is this like auto dubbing? Like, is this just Clanker output? Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah.
The reason is simple. We forget how we originally learned a language. Or rather, we've been made to forget.
Okay, so this is just Clanker shit as far as I can tell. I mean, that is definitely an electronically generated voice. And it's a 3-minute video that's going to supposedly show you how to learn languages fast. Yeah, I'm not buying that. Try to skip over anything that's just straight up Clanker shit, unless it just looks like it might be an interesting grift. Okay. How to learn any language fast, described in 5 minutes. I assume she's saying that it's she's going to say it in 5 minutes, not that it's going to take you 5 minutes, since it's a 5-minute video. This is the Lang space. Let's see what she has to say. I'm not familiar with the channel.
So you want to learn like languages fast. Welcome to the Lang Space. My name is Anna. I've learned German from 0 to C1 in just 10 months. That is one of the 5 languages I speak. And in this video, I will tell you exactly the strategy that I used. So you
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of curious what are, 10 months, what languages... Okay, so she already had Dutch, apparently. But, I mean, if she actually managed German from 0 to C1, even already knowing Dutch, that would be a pretty impressive result in 10 months.
I speak. And in this video, I will tell you exactly the strategy that I used, so you can also learn languages fast. Let's get into it. Okay, so first I'm going to tell you the biggest mistake that I made, so you do not repeat it.
Okay.
The way I was learning languages, and the way most people learn languages, is you go to your class, which is about 80% of your learning, and you learn their grammar and new words, mostly.
Yeah,
And then the
okay.
rest 20% you spend on your homework.
Okay, and so we're talking about sort of a traditional sort of skills-based grammar translation sort of method that basically convinces a lot of people that they suck at language learning because practically nobody actually learns a language this way.
And then you wonder, why after so many years of studying, I'm still not fluent? Because fluent is when you understand other people and other people understand you.
Okay. I mean, I have to say, starting off, I really appreciate actually providing a definition of fluent, because this word gets thrown around so much. And no, I mean, there's never really any clear idea in a lot of these videos what anyone's talking about when they mean fluency. So, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily... Okay, I don't know that this is the definition I would use, but, I mean, it's not a bad definition, and it is a definition. So what we're talking about here is not, like, I mean, if you understand other people and other people understand you, that isn't necessarily like C1. Hello, Badger. That isn't necessarily you're able to just pass as a native speaker at a symposium on particle physics or something like that. But you can, at the very least, function in the language. That seems to be... Hello, Diana. This is your first time here, isn't it? Welcome. So, already I have to say that this is a good start. In fact, I would consider this kind of a litmus test for when you're looking at advice anywhere on how to get fluent. If they tell you what the actual outcome that they're helping you get to is, that gives you a much better way of judging. Because a lot of people think fluent, and they think, you know... essentially, I mean, a lot of people probably think that that means that you could just pass for a native speaker, or you practically speak at a native level, or any number of things that, you know, they think of it as like the people who aren't really in the language space will often think of this as like the maximum level, and to them, fluent, you know, sort of means if you can have a conversation and don't need to resort to a dictionary every 5 seconds or whatever. It's a vague term, and so she defines it. That is, I mean, already we're off to a good start. So let's see what she has to say.
So you need to practice listening and speaking. And in your class, you don't really do that. I started making so much progress.
I mean, it depends. She's, it's worth noting, assuming a very traditional kind of class, where, you know, you sit there and you go, and you have like a verb up on the board, and it's like, أنا أتكلم, أنت أتكلمي, أنت تتكلمي, أنت تتكلم. Okay, class, هو, class, هو يتكلم. You know, and nobody's gonna fucking learn anything from that except to, like, really not enjoy language learning, because that's not how any of this works. But there are class formats where I think you would probably, find that you were getting a lot more out of it than that sort of traditional sort of class format that she's assuming. I mean, I talk a lot on this stream about TPRS. Stands for Teaching Proficiency Through Reading and Storytelling, and it is a radically different approach where essentially the whole thing is in the target language, but it is designed to help you engage in the target language as easily as possible from the very start. So you will have like a story that is led by the teacher, with a lot of visual aids to make sure that you can understand what's being said without having to resort to another language. So, you know, you'll have, if he's talking about something that's going on with a car, you know, with السيارة, you could get the if I stick to Arabic examples like this, you could get the impression that I actually would describe myself, even in her very, actually relatively low standard definition, as fluent in Arabic. And let me just get this away very quickly. I'm not. I'm learning it. have a very weird distribution of knowledge of the language. And I can understand like a fair bit when I turn on like Al Mayadeen or Al Jazeera, depending on what they're talking about. But fluent is, I'm miles away from any standard that I would apply to that. Like I could not read a book in Arabic. And there's a lot I don't understand even if I'm watching the news on a subject that I'm familiar with in Arabic. So, but I'm just using those examples because they just came to mind. But so there'll be a picture of a car, and you know and then there will be a picture of where the car is going to, so they can explain, so that you understand what's being talked about, and you'll have some like basic phrases, because the idea is that students, as they feel comfortable, will contribute to the storytelling. And sometimes, of course, you may want to add a word into the story that you don't know. So up on the wall or whatever, there will be how do you say X in Arabic or whatever, and stuff like that. And it's a totally different method. It's a hell of a lot more fun than than the traditional approach. And I would say, and what she's saying doesn't really apply as much to that.
When I started dedicating about 40% of my time to the class, then I spent about 30% on listening, 20% on speaking, and the rest 10% on other things such as reading and writing.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about these percentages. I mean, personally, I would say in my own experience, depending on the language and depending on where you're coming from relative to it, like, do you know a similar language? I mean, you could potentially cut out the class. You could distribute that 40% between listening and reading, which I would actually kind of put together. Because on a certain level, that is passive understanding that we're talking about. And then speaking, I would then speaking and writing, I would put separate, because then that is both, those are two forms of production. But okay, I mean, this is reasonable.
Why so much time listening? Why not reading? This is what worked for me because my goal was to understand people and be able to speak. If you want to write work emails, or your goal is to understand professional or academic literature, you will...
Chat, just let me be sure. Is the audio on the video okay? Do I need to turn that up at all?
have to dedicate more time toward reading and writing. So again, really depends on the person. But the point is, you have to do things outside of class. And what...
See, I mean, I would disagree in the sense that the listening and the reading really complement each other. Because if you see a lot of words while reading, those words will be available to you when you listen. And the thing about language acquisition, the thing about engaging with input, which is what she's talking about here, good to hear it, is that each word you understand helps you unlock other words. I mean, each word, everything you understand becomes context to help you make sense out of the stuff you're not sure about. And so if you get that context from reading, you say, oh yes, okay, I've read that word, it sounds like a word that I read, then that's going to help you with listening. And the listening, and I will say this particularly in the case of languages where reading requires you to deal with a lack of explicit short vowels, like Arabic and Farsi, for example, and Urdu. The listening actually will help you deal with that situation, particularly in Arabic, because you get used to the different vowel consonant structures that are the backbone of the meaning of the language. But so I would kind of group listening and reading together, but I understand where she's coming from here.
One of the easiest ways to do it is to practice listening, essentially. Now, I can already hear you say, yes, Anna, we have listening exercises in class once a week. But first of all, that is not enough. And second, your listening exercises are slow and they also use very simple words.
Probably. I mean, if we're talking again about the sort of traditional grammar translation approach and stuff, that is entirely possible. Also, there is a very good chance that your listening exercises in class will be, how shall I put this, fucking boring. And that does not help. That does not help anything. The more you are exposing yourself to the language in context you actually care about, the more you're likely to get out of it. Because then the interest is there, the motivation is there, you're actually sort of, your energies are pushing in the direction of making sense out of this because it's something that you actually care about. But often, you know, with these in-class listening exercises, it will just be some boring thing to illustrate grammatical concepts, and nobody cares. Nobody cares what it's about. Nobody remembers what it's about 5 minutes later.
And then once you get into the real world, all of a sudden, people speak faster and use more difficult vocabulary.
Yeah.
So of course,
True.
you will not understand anything. Okay, very cool, we got the problem, but how do I practice listening if I do not understand anything? Let me tell you this. The first 2 weeks I was learning German, and actually the same with Chinese. I did not understand anything.
Okay.
Not a single word. Nothing. I would just turn on a random podcast that I found online.
The Easy German, I mean, I haven't looked at Easy German specifically, but Easy, there's a whole series of like podcasts and videos that is Easy Name of Language. And those are really good. I've only seen, I've looked at the Easy Arabic ones. And I will say there are some of those that are heartbreaking because they are filmed in Gaza before like the genocide, and it's Bisan presenting them. That is what she was doing before all of this shit. But like the style of them is good. They have subtitles in both languages. So, I mean, I think their format is excellent for, like, listening practice for your beginners and low intermediate people.
And go for a walk to a park. And then maybe after 2 weeks or so, I started picking up some random words. I was like, oh cool, here they said Freundschaft, that means friendship, so they're probably talking about friendship.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that she was speaking Dutch first. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen this channel. Actually, I mean, if she wasn't understanding anything at all, maybe she learned Dutch after. Because I feel like you would understand way more German if you already knew Dutch. Because the words are so similar a lot of the time.
And I think only after 6 months or so, I started getting 60% of what is being said. Now, if you think of it, 60% is about intermediate already. And in your class, during the same amount of time...
I mean, I would say that I would qualify that, because it would depend very much on what 60% it is. And it would depend on what you're listening to. But it's definitely a good start, especially if you're coming from zero. If you're getting 60% of it, coming from zero, that's a huge improvement.
And you would still be learning about clocks, time, and maybe elephants. So that is your shortcut. And for speaking, it is also very important that you start speaking as early as you can. Of course, in the beginning, you're not going to be able to say anything, but if you start speaking...
I mean, this is, let me just say, this is where I think TPRS formats shine, because they make that part easy. They make that part easy because the words that 90% of people are going to have trouble finding, that they're going to be using the most often when they join in the storytelling process, are right up there on the board or on the wall or, you know, in the background, depending on whether this is live or virtual or whatever. So if you need to, so if you're trying to add a bit to a story, which is how these things work, and you don't know what the word is, you say, hey, it's up there. How do you say X in German? Wie sagt man X auf Deutsch? You know, or I didn't understand the question is up there. Ich habe die Frage nicht verstanden. Or, you know, stuff like that, which makes it very easy. It is all about easing you into every aspect of it. So it really reduces the barrier in that sense. Because one of the, part of speaking is you just need to have enough input that you can actually really begin to produce. That's kind of just a natural process. There's what's called a silent period. But a big part of it is also confidence. Because everybody is to some extent afraid of fucking up. That is kind of a natural thing, I think, to some extent. But it lowers the stakes. Because you do have the words right in front of you. And when done really well, it's also an extremely supportive environment, so nobody's worried about too much embarrassment.
Even with phrases like, hello, my name is Anna, I'm a student. Cool. You're gonna get used to your own voice, how you pronounce sentences, the way you structure sentences, and then the more words you learn, the more you practice, the better your sentences will be. And you're also gonna get comfortable speaking in the language. Because I remember the first...
I will say one way I personally like a lot for like practicing speaking, getting used to just wrapping your mouth around a language, comes with reading. It's reading aloud. Because then you are not actually... It removes the challenge of thinking of stuff to say, which is the hardest thing if you're just trying to speak in the language. So you don't have to think about what you're going to say. It's right there. You're just reading it aloud and trying to sound as naturally in it as possible. So, reading aloud, I would say, is an excellent way to just kind of get used to having, the words in your target language in your mouth, and it's relatively low pressure because you don't have to think of them in the first place.
When I started speaking German, I was so uncomfortable with my own pronunciation. I knew that the way I was pronouncing things was not even close to the way native speakers would say it. And so I got really embarrassed. I would blush the whole time, but I still kept practicing. And that's what really helped me to get comfortable with my own speaking. And again, I would just go to a park, make some recordings, say some basic phrases in the beginning, and then...
Okay, this background, this city backdrop looks very familiar. God, she sits on a lot of very hard surfaces. That looks very uncomfortable to me.
And later describe what I saw or how my day went. The best part about this is once you get comfortable speaking to yourself, it's going to be so much easier for you to talk to other people because your brain will get used to the language.
So Diana, since you're here, do you have any particular language you're interested in at the moment?
The way you pronounce things, the way you build sentences, the order in which you use the words. And once you have to talk to other people, even if you get a little stressed or uncomfortable, your brain will just automatically produce the sentences because it already...
Oh, well, that would not be familiar. It's like, my knowledge of Milwaukee is non-existent. I was only there for literally a fortnight after I was born. I've never been back, which kind of tells me... I guess she has a Connecticut sweatshirt, so maybe it's Hartford? I don't know. Which also would mean nothing to me, but it just sort of suggests that certain aspects of major U.S. university towns are kind of identical, I guess.
He did it so many times. Alright, that is essentially my strategy. I hope you enjoyed the video. Nick?
Okay, so that's not bad. There's a lot of detail you could go into on all of those things. There's some stuff that I don't quite agree with, but, not so much that I would say, but I wouldn't say it's wrong. It's just kind of I would do things differently. And I'm just going to give you the link to her channel here. She seems like somebody who's probably worth listening to. And let's see what else we get when we look at Learn Languages Fast, because I'm sure we're going to find some bullshit. Okay. Yeah, no, okay. Your brain has a switch to learn languages. Do this to activate it. This is called Real Fast Spanish. Okay. I have no idea what I'm about to see. This could be very interesting. This could be very grifty.
Today we're talking about a hidden switch in your brain that controls how
I mean, and let's just start out by saying, obviously, to the extent this makes sense, this is a metaphor. Your brain does not have switches.
quickly you learn Spanish. And the exciting thing is that it doesn't take a lot of effort to turn this switch on. Once you understand what it is, it can be very simple to start using it. And the best
Okay.
part? Last year, researchers published a study showing that this switch can make your vocabulary learning 20% to 100% more effective. So
Now
if
I'm curious, is he going to cite the study? Because
you're already putting in effort to
I mean, I'd like to read about this.
learn Spanish, you'll want to understand this switch because it means the time you're already investing can suddenly become far more effective. Now, to set the scene, we need to talk about
Self-reference promotes vocabulary learning in a foreign language. Okay, that's the title of the thing. Hey, Ata! Self-reference in a foreign language. Looking the study up. Springer. Ooh, okay. Open access. That's always nice. Encoding information in reference to the self leads to improved memory, a phenomenon termed the self-reference effect. Learning... okay, let me drop the link. And apparently there's a full-text PDF of this. So, it's open access. I have never heard of this journal, but... Okay. So, learning vocab in a foreign language is a challenging memory task because learning thousands of words is necessary to achieve listening and reading comprehension. Okay, in Experiment 1, native Hebrew speakers learned rare English words with a self-reference task and a control condition of translation repetition. Okay. In Experiment 2, participants learned with the same self-reference task and a control task of semantic processing. Okay. Those are two very different control tasks because, I mean, this is something, as a translator, I really have to, I'm like required, it is practically a professional duty to say this. But semantic processing, i.e. understanding meaning, is necessary in order to do translation, but it is not sufficient in order to do translation. Translation is a very different skill. And, I mean, so semantic processing is one thing. Translation is when you're making languages interact and figuring out how to fit different bits of different languages together. Much, much harder than semantic processing. So, okay, so that's what this guy's talking about. There's the study.
about your primary task as a Spanish student. At its core, language learning is a memory game. Like if we break it down...
I mean, I would disagree with that assumption. I mean, memory is definitely part of it. There's stuff you have to remember, obviously. But there's all sorts of stuff that is not... I mean, you couldn't... Saying that it's just memory makes it sound like memorization would work for it. And a lot of it has to do with internalizing structures, which memory is involved in, but other things are as well. But okay.
What you have to do looks like this. Learn a lot of words, learn how those words sound, learn how to use those words in a sentence, and remember everything that you've learned.
Okay. I mean, if we're looking at this in terms of necessary outcomes, that makes sense. I would not take this as like a step list, but I don't think that he necessarily means it that way.
And the authors of this study start off on this very point. Learning a foreign language is a complex process that requires mastering various linguistic skills. One of the major challenges is building a large vocabulary. Specifically, in order to understand daily spoken discourse, learners need to be familiar with the 2,000 to 3,000 most frequent word families. So if you want...
And I mean, that's going to vary depending on the language, because there's some languages where there's a whole lot more going on.
To get better at language learning, one of the central skills you need to improve is your ability to memorize vocabulary. The authors go on. In light of the central role of second language vocabulary knowledge, various methods have been proposed to improve vocabulary learning. Among them are spaced repetition, retrieval practice, the word parts technique, the keyword technique, and more. Now, while these methods are effective, exploring new learning methods can be beneficial given the scope of vocabulary needed.
And just to be clear, I mean, you see this L2, L1 a lot if you read studies like this. L1 refers to a person's native language. L2 is their target language that they're trying to learn.
Thus, the current study aims to investigate a novel technique for vocabulary learning based on the self-reference effect. So, what is the self-reference effect? This effect says that your brain remembers information more easily when you link it to yourself.
Okay, I mean, just on a sort of a priori kind of sniff test level, I think this makes sense. If you can relate things to stuff that actually somehow matters to you, that you can see yourself doing or requiring or something like that, then it's probably easier to connect to it. I mean, that seems as a starting point not a bad thought.
Now, to take a simple example, imagine you're trying to learn the Spanish word for cup. Now, this is taza. And the self-reference effect says that it is easier to remember the Spanish word taza when you identify it as your own. Now, a simple, practical way to do this would be to find a cup in your house and then say, "Esta es mi taza." Now, when you refer to a taza that you physically own instead of an abstract taza that belongs to someone else, it makes the word more memorable.
Okay, I mean, I would have to think about it. I don't know if taza is necessarily the best kind of an example because it's a very concrete thing. I think it seems to me that the more abstract things get, the more this sort of effect will come into play. But when you're dealing with more familiar things, this won't be as prominent. So I don't know if this is necessarily the best example, but...
Now, the self-reference effect for improvements on memory have been studied since the 1970s. But up until the 2000s, most of the earlier research was around remembering personal traits, like would you describe yourself as honest, or friendly, or selfish, or brave. The idea is that it's easier to remember a list of traits if you think you personally hold them, and it turns out that this effect is strong and well supported in the research. But then in the 2000s, researchers started to look at how the self-reference effect applies to remembering other things, such as a grocery list. Now, in this study, researchers showed participants a series of grocery items and then told them, "This item belongs to you." The experiment looked like this, where participants had a basket in front of them, and researchers would show them an item. They would say, "This item belongs to you," and then they would put it in the red basket, and that would be the basket that's yours, or the blue basket which belongs to someone else.
Okay.
They then gave the participants, say, a distraction exercise for a while, and then a surprise memory test. Now, the results showed that the participants remembered more of the items that belonged to them, shown in this graph here, and they recognized those items faster too, shown in this graph. Now, both results were statistically significant, which is exactly what you want in an experiment like this. It means that the effect is strong enough that it is very unlikely to be a random...
Just randomly noticed that somehow I have been kicked out of my Facebook account. Do I have some sort of email letting me know about this? No. Strange. Oh, there we go. That was worrying me for a second because there's no I hadn't logged out of anything. Sorry about that.
Experimental fluke. Even in this completely made up situation where someone tells you you own a picture on a card, the memory advantage was significant enough to be measurable and repeatable.
Okay. I'm going to skip ahead and see how he is applying this.
To yourself. Now, to test this, the researchers ran 2 experiments where the participants were native Hebrew speakers learning English, and they were given rare English words, and then they took a surprise memory test. Now, in experiment 1, they started with 42 participants, and each participant was given 2 sets of 10 rare words.
Yeah, okay. So the first question is, like, when I hear rare words, like, how rare? Like, what kind of words are we talking about?
For the first 10 words, they had to use the self-reference technique. They saw an English word, its Hebrew translation, they heard the word pronounced, they said the word out loud, they then had to create a sentence about themselves using that word. And the sentence had to be one of 3 types: a general fact about themselves now, a general fact about their past, or a specific past memory.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, one of the words mentioned in the experiment was banister, and a student could come up with
Is that rare, though?
the sentence like, "We had an unusual banister on the stairs in the house I grew up in." So note how this sentence creates a connection between the word the student is trying to remember and themselves.
Okay. I mean, one thing... let me just look... How many participants were actually in here? A correction was published. Ah, okay. So, like, how many participants? "42 participants, so not a whole lot of participants, I have to say. But I don't know. I mean, as an idea, this would seem to make some sense. But okay, I'm gonna take a quick bio break now. I will be back in just a few minutes, and we'll look at some more stuff and talk more languages and language learning. Back in a moment. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
還元1級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek! We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula gidelim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is al-fil, and that actually comes from Arabic. Fil, the same word fil as this, meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco. Bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10:159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io. I buy a computer or what? Here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, what sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hook in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, c'est son chassé. Ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora, editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idiomas, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. Oh, I see. And I'm back. Yeah, there, that's better. It's a nice cup of tea as well. Okay, where is my video thing? Now, I wanted to show you something that I randomly encountered while looking for Farsi learning resources recently. And it's just an example of one of those random things that kind of unites us worldwide. Namely, extremely corny educational programming for basic language learning. I'm going to introduce you to this is a Farsi learning program for Arabic speakers called Ta'alim al-Lughat al-Farsiyya, or, learning, teaching Farsi. This is episode 1. What I love is it's like you watch it, and even if you don't understand anything, if you don't understand a word of Arabic, you don't understand a word of Farsi, it is immediately familiar. So here we go. And I'm going to drop the link in chat for anyone who's interested in watching more of it. So here we are.
الو السلام عليكم. ايه محسن كيفك؟ ايه انا حسن من لبنان.
Okay, so this is one of our main characters. This is Hassan from Lebanon, and we're going to be spending a lot of time with him in the series because he's coming to Tehran to learn Farsi.
ايه انا ان شاء الله اليوم جاي على ايران.
And like the aspect ratio on this is also kind of messed up. So he looks a little bit more elongated than I think he ought to be. And he also looks just very vaguely like Caleb Maupin. Wow, this does not do well on full screen.
حسن حبيبي كيفك؟ اهلا وسهلا فيك بايران. لا ما اتفقنا هيك. لازم تحكي معي فارسي من اول وصولي على ايران.
Okay, so here we go. And this is the credit sequence each time. The opening sequence, it always starts with this. I've watched 3 or 4 of episodes of this. And so he says in Arabic, "Hey, how you doing, Hassan? Welcome to Iran." And Hassan says, "No, you gotta talk to me in Farsi. I gotta learn Farsi from the start."
طيب سلام حال شما چطور است؟ به ایران خوش آمدید.
Yeah, like the video quality, I think this is the best available quality. It is really not good. 240p, no wonder. Hey, Riveroon. Yeah, I mean, this does not... when I've watched this, it has been like on a handheld device, but wow, I mean, it is very blurry, and it's all vaguely surreal because he's like supposedly, yes, the main character Hassan from Lebanon, in this series, which is just I don't know if you missed how I was introducing this, but it's an example of one of the things that unites us worldwide, which is the corniness of educational programming for basic language learning. You'll see who I'm talking about in a second. Hey, Language Mania. And it's all very surreal as well, because the conversations are like conversations you would find in like basic traditional language learning, except actually less natural.
الو السلام عليكم. ايه محسن كيفك؟ ايه انا حسن من لبنان.
You just said this.
نعم هذا هو حسن من لبنان. أصبح طالبا جديدا للغة الفارسية. فضل أن يتعرف على الفارسية في إيران.
Oh, we're getting his origin story, which is just that he's just starting out learning Farsi.
وهي موطن هذه اللغة قبل دخوله في الجامعة.
240p on a full screen. Wow. That's what that looks like.
وبداية الفصل الدراسي الأول. نشأت الصداقة بينه.
Hey, this is the guy I was saying in some of the shots looks vaguely like Caleb Maupin. I mean, it's partially the hairline and it's partially the clothing.
بين محسن عبر الإنترنت. والعام الماضي سافر محسن إلى لبنان وقضى عدة أشهر عنده ودرس العربية في تلك الفترة. الآن يجيد اللغة العربية بطلاقة. حسن نزل ضيفا على محسن.
Hell, I think Caleb Maupin's been to Iran, so maybe he filmed this. Maybe he played Hassan. That would be very ironic. But actually I don't think so, because I think this is probably from the 90s. Judging from, once again, the absolutely horrible resolution.
سلام. حسن حبيبي كيفك؟ أهلا وسهلا فيك بإيران. لا ما اتفقنا هيك. لازم تحكي معي فارسي من أول وصولي على إيران. أكيد كثير.
Okay. I mean, actually what I find is from watching this, since it is such basic Farsi, it is helping me with my Arabic, actually. So, this is where we get it twice in the first episode, but you get it once in every other episode. Which is, he gets off the plane, he comes out of the airport, Mohsen, who is this guy here, greets him in Arabic, and he says, no, I gotta start speaking Farsi from the moment I get to Iran, and so
ظاهر إنه مصمم حتى تتعلم اللغة. أكيد. طيب. سلام. حال شما چطور است؟ به ایران خوش آمدی. حال شما چطور است؟ حال شما چطور است؟
Well, I mean, one of the things they do focus on, because it's for Arabic speakers, is the fact that Farsi has consonants that Arabic doesn't have. Like ch and p and g. Well, I mean, Egyptian Arabic has g. And actually, I think Iraqi does too, but...
چی یعنی؟ حال شما چطور است؟ یعنی کیف حالک؟ به ایران خوش آمدی؟ به ایران خوش آمدی؟ یعنی اهلا و سهلا فیک به ایران. حال شما چطور است؟ خوب هستم. خدا رو شکر. یعنی انا منیح. الحمد لله.
This is actually more natural than 90% of the conversations in this program.
برافين برافين شو يعني؟ يعني يلا نروح يلا يلا برافين يلا.
We just learned how to say let's go.
يقول حسن إن صديقي محسن أثار رغبتي للتعرف على الفارسية، وفي هذه الرحلة يريد حسن أن يتعلم الفارسية إضافة إلى تعرفه على الثقافة الإيرانية، فهو متلهف إلى الأدب الفارسي العريق من تراث حافظ وسعدي ومولوي وغيرهم كما يقول.
تفضل حبيبي، أهلا وسهلا.
So he stays with this family in
شو إن شاء الله
what looks like a mansion.
لا كانت حلوة بس شو طهران من فوق كثير حلوة بالطيارة. تفضل. سلام. سلام. آقای حسن الحاج مهمان عزیز ما رسیدن.
Yes, this is an Iranian program to teach Farsi to Arabic speakers. And what just gets me about it is how corny it is and how very similar it is to similar corny programs that I've seen from like all over the world. Like I've seen like US programs that are identical to this, German ones that are identical, Russian ones that are identical. It's like there's the same playbook for the corny basic language learning TV show.
خوش آمدید. خوش آمدید.
خوش آمدید.
They have they have the Farsi and Arabic subtitles at the same time, so it's خوش آمدید, آمدید, أهلا وسهلا. But the resolution is so bad that you can barely read them.
بدي أعرفك على أهلي. هيدا أبي. هيدي أمي. خیلی خوش آمدید. وهيدا
Like again, 90% of the conversations are so much less. This is the most. You would actually be deceived and think that the conversations were way more natural than they generally are in this thing. I'm gonna skip ahead.
عنوان آموزش زبان فارسی پخش کنم. فکر میکنم این برنامه برای حسن آقا مفید باشد.
بي بيقول انه في برنامج لتعليم اللغة الفارسية يعرض على قناة الكوثر الفضائية. والله على الكوثر. وبيعتقد انه يكون مفيد لإلك. حتما طيب هذا خبر كتير حلو لحسن ونحن اكيد رح نشوفه لهذا البرنامج. اكيد. اما اولین درس برای حسن که باید یاد بگیرد معرفی خود است. من از شما خواهش میکنم که خودتان را با زبان ساده برای حسن معرفی کنید.
اسم من علی ایرانمنش است. من پدر محسن هستم. شغل من پرستار است.
پرستار. المريض.
من پرستار هستم.
من فاطمه ناصری هستم. من مادر محسن هستم. من معلم هستم.
She's a teacher.
من حسین ایرانمنش است. من برادر محسن هستم. من دانش آموز هستم.
The acting is really what I watched this for, though.
محسن ایرانمنش هستم. من دانشجو هستم. طيب حسن هلا انت عرف نفسك. اسمه من حسن الحاج هستم. لا است. اسم من حسن الحاج است. اسم من حسن الحاج است.
Yeah, so we watch him. A lot of it is watching him struggling with things like verb conjugations, but there is some. Okay, so I'm going to skip over.
ایشان کیوان هستند. حال شما چطور است؟
How are you doing?
من امیر هستم.
Hello, I am Amir.
ایشان پدرام هستند.
They are Pedron? They are fathers.
سلام، من پروین هستم. من خانه‌دار هستم.
Even the music.
و ایشان مهوش دوست من هستند.
سلام، من لیلا هستم. من کارمند هستم و ایشان بهناز همکار من هستند.
سلام، من بهمن هستم. من 5 ساله هستم و ایشان دارا برادر من هستند.
سلام، من سعید هستم. من 6 ساله هستم و ایشان سارا خواهر من هستند.
سلام، من بهروز کیایی هستم. حال
So, okay, I'm gonna. So you get, like, disembodied sentences.
وهي الأوضة اللي عنا وينها؟
بالطابق الفوقي.
والله
هلا بتشوفها. بس قبل ما تشوفها عندي لك هدية.
هدية؟
يلا. ايه عرفت كيف؟ مثل ما قلت لك هلا بتشوفها.
I mean, the thing about the show is 90% of the actual conversation goes on in Arabic. And, like, literally everything that goes on in Farsi is vaguely surreal in some way.
بس قل لي هيدي الهدية اللي وعدتني فيها شو هي؟ فعندي شوق اشوفها.
ما طول بالك هلا بتشوفها. قرب.
يلا طيب.
ايه قرب. وصلنا.
شو؟
طيب لحظة.
شو؟
أول شو بدك سكر عيونك.
والله
لا ما بصير. بدك سكر عيونك أول شيء.
طيب.
سكرهم.
منيح. يلا أسرع.
ما تفتحهم.
يلا.
هو بتفتحهم.
طيب.
طيب لحظة.
يلا بقاش فيه أسرع.
فوت.
شو يكون مقلب
شوي شوي. ما تفتحهم ايه شوفك.
فتح.
ما تزعبر.
يلا يا زلمة. فتح. يلا.
افتحهم.
That's really intense, like, emotional music for just seeing a fairly normal room.
حلوين.
شو هالغرفة هاي؟
عزاوقك ايه؟
مش طبيعي.
Like, that is I'm falling in love music.
كثير حلوة. ليه معذب حالك هيك؟
حبيبي ولو مش من قيمتك. هنا تختك فيك تحط اغراضك عليهم.
ايه
حطهم.
قلبي. ليه معذب حالك هيك يا زلمة؟
ولو حبيبي ولو. على فكرة في هونيك سيديات وكتب لتعليم اللغة الفارسية. فيك تستفيد منهم بعدين.
أكيد حستفيد منهم. حبيبي.
وشو في بعد؟
CDs. Oh, that helps us date when this was made, certainly.
هون في مكتبة فيها كتب. فيك تستفيد من هذا الكتب كمان بعدين.
هيك يعني عواكن عم هيك حسسني انه اخجل كثير.
حبيبي. هلا حبيبي.
شو هون؟ شو هني هون؟
Let's see.
هن أحرف الأبجدية الفارسية.
طيب 1 2 3
شو هلا بدك تعدهم؟
كم حرف؟
32 حرف.
They're talking about letters, most of which are identical between the two languages anyway, so...
يعني 4 أحرف أكثر من اللغة العربية.
صح. 28 نحن عندنا بالعربي.
Oh, okay. I actually understood that. Input works. He said there are 4 letters that are different from Arabic.
مزبوط. طيب.
Here we go.
بدي شغلة. فيك تقول لي اياهم شو هن الأربع أحرف؟ أنت وشطارتك.
Find the 4 different letters.
في هيدا الحرف.
This letter. His pen isn't working.
وفي هيدا الحرف
صح.
في هيدا الحرف. شو هيدا جديد هيدا؟ ها منيح. وفي هيدا شو هيدا كا وعليها فتحة.
Like, the resolution is so bad that it's like he's writing in disappearing ink. Wow, we already they just changed the focal length a little bit, and what he wrote has already disappeared.
أحسنت. هودي هن الأربع أحرف. هلا فيك تقرأ لي هون؟
بحاول. هيدا ب.
لا.
شو؟
هيدا الحرف ب ب ب ب ب مثلا بخ. ما تخاف ما تخاف حبيبي، ما تخاف، عم بمزح معي.
ب
ب
ب ب
ب ب ب ب. أحسن. تاني.
ح خ.
هيدي تش.
ش.
لا تش.
I mean, this is one of the things that makes the Arabic alphabet really versatile, really. Because there's already this precedent of just varying the number of dots to make new letters as you need to. So there's a lot of mod support. I mean, that's a lot of what other languages that have adopted the Arabic alphabet have done. They just add a few dots here and there. So, like, what Farsi does a lot of the time is, like, most of it is they just put 3 dots on things that did not already have the 3-dot slot occupied.
Oh, che.
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 Che. مثلا هتش.
يا حبوب الله.
هتش. صحة.
قلبك. طيب.
Che.
Che.
Like, I mean, you listen to this, it's actually pretty good for, because Mohsen is actually speaking Arabic here. And so this is actually kind of good for basic Arabic, because I think even if you didn't know what masalan was, the way he's using it, you would probably pick up that it means as in or for example, because he's trying to get across how to make these sounds that Arabic doesn't have.
هيدي زي رز زر.
هيدا الحرف ج.
ج. ما هيديك ج.
لا هيديك ج. هيدي ج. ج ج ج ج
ج ج
ج ج
ج
ج. مثلا بدك نتشي هالقد خلص ما تمدها أكتر. طيب آخر وحدة.
I'm not even sure what that was supposed to be that they were doing there, because the resolution, again, I can barely make out how many fingers they have.
هيدي قلت لك كاو عليها فتحة بس ما بعرف شيء.
لا هيدي ج ج. مثلا مثل المصرية كيف بيلفظوا ج.
Yeah, I mean, he says it's like the way Egyptians talk. Oh well. U.
جا يعني
بيقولوا ج. هيدي هيدا هو الحرف
جا.
ج
ج
ج
ج ج
ج.
قال لك اياه من الاول.
طيب
ب
ب
تش
تش
ج
ج
ج
ج. أحسن.
طلابي الأعزاء، في هذه الحلقة نتحدث عن بعض القضايا لقواعد اللغة الفارسية.
And now it's like a Farsi language quiz show, but it's conducted in Arabic.
أن الحروف الهجائية في اللغة الفارسية تختلف عن اللغة العربية، بأنها في 28 حرفا هناك اشتراك بين اللغتين الفارسية والعربية، لكن بالنسبة إلى 4 حروف وهي حروف P, Ch, J و G، هناك هذه الحروف توجد في الفارسية ولا توجد في العربية. فمثلا كلمة باتو بطانية، شتر مذلة، هذه الكلمات توجد فيها حروف تسمى بحروف الخاصة باللغة الفارسية. كذلك كلمة شجرة تشنار، هذه كلمة فارسية اسمه شجر. وهذه الحروف لها خصائص بأنها فيها 3 نقاط P, Ch, J, G. مثلا
I mean, each time he says the 4 letters P, Ch, J, G, and each time the subtitles forget G.
الآن مريم اذكري لنا كلمة فيها حرف P.
Okay, come up with a word with P in it.
پرنده.
شكرا. ننتقل إلى أخ سامر. الأخ سامر اذكر لنا كلمة فيها حرف Ch.
Ch. مثل
yeah, exactly. That is my experience of it too, because my Farsi is not great, but it is beyond this level. Like, this is extremely basic, so it's all stuff I already know. But the Arabic actually, I'm actually picking things up because I understand what they're talking about broadly, and so I'm able to make sense out of it. This is what input is all about, because you have the context, and so you can kind of make sense out of it. Chai.
Shukran.
I mean, the wild thing about this is later that these people are like recurring characters in the show, and that blonde dude, in a later episode it emerges he's German, and he's in this quiz show for Arabic speakers, learning Farsi.
وننتقل إلى نقطة ثانية في القواعد العربية، وهذه النقطة أن في الفارسية هناك كلمة للإشارة إلى القريب وللإشارة إلى البعيد. فالكلمة التي نستخدمها للقريب المفرد، أسماء الإشارة في الفارسية 4 كلمات. الكلمة الأولى للإشارة إلى المفرد القريب نستخدم كلمة إن.
This.
مثلا نقول إن كتاب است.
This is a book.
وكذلك للإشارة إلى المفرد البعيد نستخدم كلمة آن درخت است. وهناك كلمة
That is درخت, I think is tree. On is that.
الإشارة إلى الجمع القريب إنها.
Plural.
إنها. كما نقول في الفارسية.
Like, I'm learning Arabic grammatical terms from this.
إنها دانشجو هستند.
They are students.
البعيد نستخدم كلمة آنها. آنها مسافر هستند.
They are travelers.
آنها دفتر هستند. والفرق بين الفارسية والعربية
The difference between Farsi and Arabic
أن أسماء الإشارة إذا كانت بعدها كلمة بشكل الجمع يستخدم بشكل المفرد. این کتابها روی میز هستند. این مع أن كلمة كتابها كلمة جمع، لكن نستخدم اسم الإشارة بشكل المفرد. في الفارسية لا يوجد فرق بين المذكر والمؤنث خلافا للعربية، بما
Okay.
أن في العربية هناك أسماء وهناك كلمات.
Like, if you know the basic Farsi concepts that he's talking about, and have enough Arabic to kind of start out processing what he's saying, yeah, actually, I mean, I find I learn Arabic from watching this as a result. It's like, everything he's talking about in Farsi is stuff that I learned ages ago, like when I was first trying to learn the language. It's something that I come back to every once in a while. So all of it is familiar. In, on, hastam, hastid, hasti, hastim, hastand. Like, all very basic stuff. But the Arabic to describe it is not very basic Arabic because it's all very grammatical. It's grammatical terminology. But okay. So I'm going to move on to something else. Oh, and it's going to be Evil Dia. I know you're shocked. Yeah, hastam. And what you'll notice about the word to be in Farsi is hast. If you look at Romance languages, and actually in Russian and like Slavic languages too, you will see that same structure. Ast, est, sta, stare, ser, il est. And in fact, the casual oral way of saying is in Farsi is not ast, it's e. So you have est like in Latin and e like Italian or French because it is an Indo-European language, and it kind of, you find familiar things branching out both in the Indo direction and the European direction all over the place. Oh, hell. Okay, that's members only, so no. We're not going to find out which people need to be called out. How I became fluent in Spanish in under a year. This is Michael Harper Spanish. Never heard of the channel? Under a year starting from what? We will find out. It will be a relief just to have decent screen resolution. I'm not gonna lie.
How to become fluent in Spanish in under a year. How to learn in 30 days. Speak like a native speaker in a week. Some other crazy YouTube title that gets you to click on it. No, but seriously,
I mean, it worked.
I was able to become fluent in Spanish in under a year and within a short amount of time.
Okay, so we were talking earlier about one thing to always look at. It's, to me, it's an indicator of credibility is, do they tell you what they mean by fluent?
Around just a few months, I was able to have...
I mean, he's, like, apparently teaching Spanish in this channel. I've never heard of it, but judging from the title of it, that seems to be the thing. Which, if he's teaching it, that would imply a pretty high level.
Real conversations with people without having to translate every other word in my head. So,
okay.
Yes, you can actually...
Real conversations with people without having to translate every other word in your head. Okay, that's a definition. He doesn't really pose it as an explicit definition, but he's telling us what he's talking about. So already, I appreciate that.
We'll be speaking Spanish just a couple of months from now, and I'm going to show you the best strategies that I applied to be able to do that.
I particularly like the fact that he addressed the internal state, the mental process. You know, not having to translate everything in your head before saying it in the language. I would definitely consider that a marker of whatever we mean by fluency. I think that is absolutely a milestone in language acquisition when you can just spontaneously respond in the target language without having any mental reference to the L1.
And if you're skeptical, you're in good company, because I was very skeptical too when I saw people learning Spanish within a matter of months when I started to learn Spanish, or when I was just playing around with the idea of learning Spanish, because it doesn't seem realistic.
Okay, I mean, fluent in under a year, if all that means is, okay, a real conversation, the word real there is doing kind of a lot of work. And we'd have to know what real conversation actually means. But okay, let's...
And no, I'll say right off the bat, 2-3 months from now, you're not going to be a perfect Spanish speaker.
Okay.
It's just probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
but will you be able...
Yeah, I think it's safe to say in 2 to 3 months you will not be a perfect Spanish speaker. Even if you're starting from, like, Portuguese or Italian.
to understand almost everything in Spanish and be able to form really complex conversations.
In 2 to 3 months, understand almost everything and really complex conversations? Like, okay, that, I have to say, my skepticism is growing a little bit, because that would be an extremely impressive result as far as I'm concerned. And a year to be able to converse, which was kind of what he was saying before. I mean, I can see that if the conversation isn't flash.
Within a year, that is 100% possible, and I'm living proof of that. A little bit of background on me. I've been teaching Spanish mainly on Instagram and through my Spanish programs. And I'm starting to make more and more videos on YouTube to share my Spanish knowledge.
Okay.
Get you to learn.
I mean, he calls himself an entrepreneur. That immediately makes me a little bit less certain. I feel like when people call themselves that immediately just kind of reads grifty.
Spanish quickly. The goal of all of my content is just that, to teach Spanish in a sort of non-traditional way, because I personally had to learn Spanish just like you, so I can explain things in a different way.
But he learned in less than a year. So, I mean, okay. So he started from one way and then he switched over and he got fluent in under a year. Is that what he's saying?
And let's say a native Spanish speaker could. So if that's something that interests you, please go ahead and show some love to this channel by liking this video.
Oh, I haven't decided whether I do, Michael. I haven't decided. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit because
to understand what we're trying to learn
Spanish. I wanna actually hear what sort of approach. Like, essentially, it's what he is talking about in terms of results and what he's talking about in terms of approach.
Quickly, is that we have to do it in a different way than most people.
A different way than most people.
Normal people spend years and years inside of Spanish programs and university classes and all of this other stuff, and then they still, at the end of those 4 or 5 years, however long it took them to go through those programs, still don't feel like a confident Spanish speaker. And
okay, I mean, true but commonplace statement.
Struggle to even understand basic conversations in Spanish, and I'm a witness to a lot of people who have done that.
I mean, I think everyone is a witness to a lot of people who have done that.
We don't want to be normal. We don't want to be like that, obviously. Instead, we want to learn like a baby. We want to.
Okay. Now, this can go in a couple of directions. One, that is just sort of an oversimplification to introduce people to the idea. And the other is that they take that literally, in which case it becomes nonsense. But okay, so
look at the real experts of language learning, which are babies, of course, because babies learn super quick and we have no idea how they do it. That's
but we do have an idea how they do it. There's an entire fucking discipline of linguistics about how they do it. Like, early language development is actually a fairly well-studied area. And actually, when you look at things like the input hypothesis, Krashen's work, all of that comes, at least in part, from studies of early first language acquisition. So it's not that we don't know how they do it. We actually have a pretty good idea how they do it. In fact, if we didn't know how they did it, it would be absolutely ridiculous to say that you could then use that as a method, because if you don't know how somebody does it, then you can't, like, abstract it into a method.
Because we don't really stop and look at their strategy. Because they're just babies.
They don't have a strategy.
What does a baby do? A baby is immersed in the language. But
okay.
Not just that. It's not just because they're surrounded by the language that allows them to learn quickly.
I mean, of course, the question is what quickly means here. Because, I mean, it still takes a while before they can have a conversation.
The reason
I mean, anyone who's talked with, like, a 4-year-old knows it takes a while before before a conversation can be had. So I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't say quickly, it's more like normally. It is literally the average for first language acquisition.
They're able to learn so quickly is because they're always constantly trying to figure out how to communicate. They're always trying to figure out how to put different phrases together, how to do these different things. Like, if I'm a baby and I want this cup, I'm going to figure out how to say, you give cup to me, right? And
okay, like, already we're getting into a very literal place with this. But let's see where he's taking this.
Give cup. But I'm slowly learning how to, without even realizing it, conjugate verbs. I'm realizing how to use indirect and direct objects and all of this other stuff. All the while, I've never spent a second inside of a grammar book.
I mean, and this is one thing, I mean, when linguists talk about things like universal grammar and the input hypothesis, one of the reasons that these things are influential is because there are all sorts of structures that people get right in their native language without ever having to be corrected on them. Like, there's certain mistakes no native speaker has ever made.
Baby, of course. You'll never see a baby with their head shoved inside of a vocabulary book.
Probably not, because they generally can't read.
Shoved inside of a grammar rules book, stressing out over an exam that they have to take tomorrow.
Yeah, probably not.
That is not how we want to learn a language. We want to learn a language by simply using it and figuring out how to say stuff.
Okay, using it and figuring out how to say stuff. I really do hope that we're going to get more methodology than that.
Thankfully, we're adults and we're a little bit smarter than babies, so we're able to take shortcuts. Shortcuts like learning verb conjugation.
I don't know that I'd even call that a shortcut.
Shortcuts like maybe using grammar rules as a guide to get us to having good sentence structure. But one of the things that you really don't want to do is you do not want to focus on grammar. At least you don't want to focus heavily on it. Grammar rules can be confusing, and at the end of the day, what you really want to just focus on is speaking and figuring out how to say stuff.
Okay, I mean, I'm kind of following him here. How far through the video are we? It's a 15-minute video. This is 4:21, so like just past weed.
Drastically in Spanish. I mean, look at this verb hablar, which means to speak or to talk.
Decent pronunciation, okay. I mean, this is one of the things that, like, somebody says, okay, well, I learned to speak fluently in Spanish. Bueno, well, demuéstramelo. Like, show me, speak some fucking Spanish. I want to know what level you managed to get to even more than a year afterwards. If you're going to make claims based on that, especially if you're going to sell it. But okay, I would say, just hearing that one word, I would say he has good pronunciation, at least of that word.
I mean, it could be hablo, hablas, habláramos, hablaste, hablaríamos. I mean, there's so many different possible conjugations that it can be a bit overwhelming. Obviously, there are patterns, but if you want to be a serious Spanish speaker and you want to be able to understand what other people say to you in Spanish, you have got to focus on how to talk in the present, how to conjugate in the past tense, and the future, and the subjunctive, and all of these different tenses. Because
I mean, technically the subjunctive is not a tense, it's a mood, but okay.
Because otherwise you're just going to sound like Tarzan and say things like, me go to store yesterday, or me went tomorrow. Doesn't sound great, and we don't obviously want to sound like that. So
okay. Yeah, I agree, we do not want to sound like that. It would not necessarily be great. But, like, okay, but what's your method here?
I recommend, and this is what a lot of traditional classes get wrong, getting back
Okay.
to the point of analyzing what normal people do, which again, we don't want to be like that. Normal Spanish classes will focus months and months and months on just the present tense. And then maybe they'll teach you the past tense after like the second or third semester of classes. And
I have to say, I mean, I've seen traditional language classes of various sorts. I don't feel like they spend that much time on just, you know, the present before they get into other tenses.
You're already over a year into it, and then we might get to the future. All the while, we're learning a bunch of vocabulary words that we're probably never going to use in an actual conversation with the person. Like, oh, I like apples.
I mean...
And today it's 72 degrees outside.
Those are as examples of things that you're never going to talk about in a conversation. I feel like apples and the temperature are actually things that... I mean, see, it's like, I agree with his point. There's a lot of very unnatural language that isn't necessarily very conversationally useful taught in traditional classes. But these aren't examples of that. Apples come up a fair bit. I mean, like in Spanish, you know, they're in a lot of set phrases, like meter la pera con la manzana. You know, to put pears and apples together. The idea is you're mixing two things that are not alike and do not belong together. But and manzana not only is apple, but of course in some places it also means like a city block.
In the beginning, we don't want...
Which is weird as hell. I don't know how they got there, but they did. I mean, in Spain they say manzana, and it means apple or city block.
I don't see myself going up in a Spanish bar and talking to someone like that, you know, going like, hey, this apple is green, or I am a man. That's not real practical Spanish.
I mean, it's probably... I mean...
to talk about what I'm doing today, what I'm doing tomorrow. If you're interested in my interests as well, you know, well, let's talk about politics. Why not? But whatever interests you.
I mean, I agree. Okay, if he's saying focus, you know, try to use your interests as a way to orientate yourself within, like, learning vocabulary and stuff like that, because it will make it easier. I mean, if that's the idea, fine. Okay, I agree, but it's like he's being very vague. He's talking very much about, like, what he's saying not to do. I'm not getting a huge amount on what to do. Like, this is supposed to be how he got fluent in Spanish in under a year. And this video has not been about that so far. But, I mean, there's 11 minutes left.
Talk about that in a realistic conversation. So focus on the verbs that were able to do that, and it's kind of ironic that these traditional classes take so long to teach you this stuff, because that means that they can just charge you more and more money for a longer amount of time. So kind of makes sense when you think about it.
I mean, a lot of those traditional classes do not charge by the session, though. Like, I mean, if you're talking about traditional classes in schools and universities that also, you know, use kind of the sort of grammar translation method that he's talking about here. No, I mean, they don't, like, charge you per session of class. That's not how that works.
So again, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to focus on learning every verb tense and conjugation as quickly as possible.
Okay, how?
And we're not going to focus on boring grammar rules. Definitely not.
Wait. Conjugation is an example of grammar rules.
Not going to do that, okay? And we're also not going to focus on vocabulary. Wow.
Okay. Like, I don't even... Like, at this point, we're getting a lot of what this is not. We're getting very little. Like, okay, so no vocabulary. Okay, so... Like, what does that even mean? We're not going to focus on I mean, like... There are lots of different ways to focus on vocabulary. I mean, maybe he means, like, memorizing them off a list or something like that. But, like...
But how are we supposed to speak a language if we don't know vocabulary words? obviously, don't take that super literally when I say
Okay, then what do you mean? Like, it's your video. If you mean something else by it.
that. But I'm not gonna sit there and look up all of these different vocabulary words. Like, I'm not gonna pull out some big Spanish book and just go down a list of vocabulary words trying to figure out stuff.
Does he mean a dictionary?
It's not smart, because I'm just gonna forget those words anyway. Instead, I go back to when
Okay, we got instead. Are we finally going to hear what he's talking about? We're nearly halfway through this thing. I'm hoping that he tells us something more about his approach, which we haven't gotten anything
Instead,
from.
we have to use the language, which means whatever I'm thinking and doing in English, I'm going to figure out how to do and say that thing in Spanish. That way...
Okay, how, though? Like, we're halfway through the video. How?
I learn vocabulary that is useful to my life. So really, I don't...
I mean, okay, in principle, I agree. The more useful the aspects of the language are that you focus on, probably the better time you'll have retaining them. I do actually agree with that overall idea.
Never have to go and study vocabulary necessarily. Simply, whenever I hear new vocabulary or whenever I need to know a new vocabulary word, I look that word up.
Wait, you just said that you don't go looking words up in a big Spanish book, by which you probably mean a dictionary.
And then I will be way more likely to remember it because it's something that's useful to my life, and it's likely a vocabulary word.
Like, this is literally, he just contradicted himself completely. There's an underlying idea that if you spend too much time looking up every word you don't understand when you're reading a text, when you're engaging with input or something like that, it does not actually help a lot. And there are studies that indicate that. But I still don't have the slightest idea what the hell he's talking about. What's his approach?
That I'm going to use every single day. So learn vocabulary, use vocabulary that's useful to you.
So he just said don't focus on learning vocabulary. And he said don't go looking words up in a big Spanish book. And now it's learn vocabulary, focus on vocabulary, look up vocabulary that's useful to you. But how do you do these things?
Because, again, your focus needs to be on verbs. Verbs change...
This guy wants you to pay for his method. And this is his video that he did that is supposedly explaining his method. We are halfway through it, and I still have no idea what he's about to tell us is his method, because none of this makes any sense.
Vocabulary words.
Now that could be, I want to be fair and say that could be a problem with the video and not with his methodology, but I feel like if you have a clear methodology and you understand why you're making certain methodological choices, you could probably do a better job of explaining it within 15 minutes, to the point where within half of a 15-minute video, a person would be able to summarize what your approach is about.
Do not. The only way a vocabulary word can change is if you add an S to it to make it plural, just like we do in English. But again, if I can't communicate, let's say I wanted to say, yesterday I went to the store.
Go stays in the infinitive for the most part.
In Spanish, these changes in these verbs are much more drastic, by the way. It could be...
with to go in particular,
we eat
in Spanish fast, so the presupposition here is we do not know Spanish. How would we have noticed the thing he's talking about when all he's doing is saying things in English? He has not yet said a single actual sentence in Spanish in this whole thing.
Whatever tense. So again, I know I've said this so many times, but verbs needs to be your focus.
Is he Did he know what he was going to say before he sat down to make the video? Because it's like he sounded like he was going to be talking about the input hypothesis. Because usually when you hear people say, you know, we're going to look at, you know, how babies learn languages and stuff, then they're usually going to be talking about input. But he took it in a completely different direction, and then he said, we're not going to do grammar rules. And then he said, but we're going to focus on verbs, and verbs are like the grammar ruliest thing in the language, as he himself pointed out. And it's like, but we still don't know how.
Vocabulary words don't. Every single verb, tense, and conjugation, all that's left to do is fill in your sentences.
With all the fucking things that you need in order to make a meaningful... So, I don't know.
With vocabulary that you pick up on the way naturally. So, the next
idea of getting a general sense of how words change, of what different structures look like, so that you can pick them out on the fly. I mean, that's not terrible, but like, I still, what's your
thing
what's
that I
your
want to
method?
talk about is immersion and how to immerse yourself. Ways that we can do this without ever stepping foot inside of a Spanish-speaking country. By the way, I
mean, if you're in the U.S., you are in a Spanish-speaking country. I mean, speakers in Canada. Okay. 19.6% of Canadians are native French speakers. Same metric. The U.S. is at least as bilingual as Canada, and I would say more so. So this really, I mean, there are even like local variants of Spanish that originate here. So this is legit a Spanish-speaking country. It's just you have to know where to go within the country, because it is there are regional differences.
Stepped foot inside of a Spanish-speaking country until I was already fluent in Spanish. So before that, I just simply learned from the comfort of my own room at home. Never had to go anywhere. We can do things like putting our phone in Spanish. Really sing.
That is one to be careful with, because sometimes you have like important settings that absolutely need to be changed urgently. And it can be a real pain if you don't know the language well to figure.
Because you'll learn how to say things like message, send message, typing. You'll learn the weather. That's how I learned the weather. Phone in Spanish, while it's difficult at first, you get used to it, and it almost puts your brain into a sort of survival mode where it's like, either you learn this or you're not going to be able to go about your day. So try to find a way to do that.
I don't understand Spanish and your car has a lot of controls that are digitized. I feel like that could be borderline dangerous potentially.
I just wanted total immersion. Whenever I would watch, would be like maybe vloggers in Spanish or let's say.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we've gotten to not bad ideas, but like, in terms of a reproducible approach that gets you fluent in Spanish in 1 year, what do you mean?
I was into soccer a lot at the time. I would look up soccer tutorials in Spanish. I had people...
I mean, I will say, I have recommended that sort of a method right on this stream. Position, I think.
My soccer team that I played on, that spoke Spanish. So what I did is I found one person who was really nice to me, started to become good friends with him, and told him, like, hey, I'm learning Spanish. So every time that we texted each other...
Not really getting a clear picture of the outcome. And that would be cool if this is like documenting his Spanish learning journey, but he's selling this. He's like selling his teaching according to this method, and he does not seem to have a very strong ability to explain what his method exactly is.
Making that one simple decision of finding someone that I already knew that spoke Spanish. Next thing I know, guess what? I'm at the cookouts with his family. I'm talking to his parents in Spanish because they didn't speak English.
Yeah, I mean, like, absolutely, totally worthwhile thing. And I have to say, like...
coworker, an acquaintance, a person on your club or team, just someone that you know that speaks Spanish, tutors for a really affordable amount of money.
So, like, but this is a method he's selling, and he's just telling people get on. Okay, I got disconnected. Why is that? Jesus. There we go. Okay, let's see. My strategy to become fluent. Why, I was a great Spanish learner and you're not. Okay, let's just have a look at this. We only have a couple of minutes, but we'll just have a look.
So why was I able to learn Spanish fast and you've been struggling for a while to do it? I'll be honest, the main reason was the way that I decided to learn, my methodology, and I think it's also worth noting that it's okay to take breaks. It's okay.
Okay, but what's your methodology? I haven't...
Three strategies that I focused on and what you need to focus on as well. My clearest roadmap to learning Spanish and becoming fluent within a year is all in my free training.
Okay. I mean, if it's already in a free training, though, you might as well just put it up on your channel and have, because, and then have something else be your free training. Because if your free training is just a description of your method, I mean, and I have to probably put, information into a marketing funnel in order to get it, then I don't know that I'm going to do that. But we're going to come back to this tomorrow. It is time for me to wrap up. Thanks to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.